participating or presenting their best case studies. The second category that we have is the startup category, and here are a few of the companies which are really which are showcasing themselves in the startup ecosystem out here. The third one is academia, and we have some best practices which has been shortlisted from academia as such. A fourth category that used to be there was about CSR. This year we decided we'll not take up the CSR event. Rather than that, we will have a separate conference for CSR as such, so that we give due attention to that particular thing and it's more meaningful out there. Our sponsors for the event, if you look at gold, we have Adrenaline, Herky, we have a couple of silver sponsors out here. While we speak on the way, I have two more guys who have confirmed to me as silver sponsors. Okay, so till the time I get a formal email from them, I'm not going to make a mention of that. So, and we have a couple of friends of NHRD. We have the academic partner V School. I'm sure a couple of the students will be from V School Alliance and a couple of other. So, it is thanks to this group, of individuals. It's basically a relationship that we have with them. It's really going with the theme. They have decided to participate. So thanks to all the sponsors. Let's get on to the agenda. And here, if you go to hrshowcase.in, the agenda is there. We have a wonderful list of speakers who are going to come in. We have Dr. T.V. Rao and Krishna Kumar Natarajan, who is the managing partner for Mela Ventures. They are going to be the guest of honor or the chief guest for the event. And then we have a whole set of panel out there. I think in the afternoon, we are going to see another very important thing. This is a thing, it's a big debate. Now, big debate is nothing. One group is going to talk about the human side of it. One side is going to talk about the intelligence, the artificial intelligence. And finally, is there a synergy or are humans really going to exist? So I'm sure that is going to be a very, very exciting, phase out there. And so that's basically where, the speakers. The second day, again, we have a list of speakers out here. The second day, in the evening, we will have, in the closing ceremony, we will also announce the winners or the top 3 practices, from a best practices perspective. In addition to this, you will see a couple of master classes which is mentioned out there to the right. And we have Gen AI for HR, Digital HR by Ramesh Ranjan. A couple of more things getting added out here. This is really for people for specific modular program. Somebody wants to attend that, please go, feel free to attend that particular thing. There is no charge, no special charge or anything. It's a certificate program. It will be certified, by NHRD as well as the company which is going to do that session out there. So that's really the thing on the agenda as such. Pictures of few of the speakers out there. That's Anjali Raghuvanshi, the Chief People Officer for Randstad. Dr. T.V. Rao anyway is there. Bhuvan, Chief Officer of Lentra. Neha Bagaria is the founder and CEO of Herky. That's Krishna Kumar Natarajan, the chief guest for the day. And Raj Raghavan is with the company, he's going to come down from Chennai, CoStack, he heads CoStack. And another very dear friend of mine, Radha, who's there, she's on the board of a few companies and things like that, but obviously, great list out there. And this is how to register. This is all there on the showcase website. We have a membership, out here. For members, this is the fees of 5,500. For non-members, so it's always better to go and take membership. And right now, because of the showcase event, we are also running a special program where you are being given 20% discount to take membership. So if you go and take an annual membership, what was really 2,100 is almost close to 1,900 at this point of time, annual membership. If you take a lifetime membership, what was really 11,000 is 9,000 odd. So today my friend Om has just taken a lifetime membership. So thank you very much, Om. And for the showcase, it's going to be free entry for everyone because the idea is learning. And when I say showcase, it is the corporate best practices, the startups and things like that. So anybody can just walk in. And let me tell you guys, this 5,500 also is because of the fact that we have a commitment with the hotel, right? 2 days of, it involves coffee, food, other charges and stuff like that. That's the cost that we are trying to cover out there. Otherwise, it's 2 days of learning. It's too late. Anybody wants to get a certification done, please go for it. So just being transparent and honest, right? That's the cost. So that's the Dhamaka offer I said, 20%. Please avail it and take your membership. Please follow us on, these are the social media or whatever communication channels we have. And here is a communication expert sitting out here. That's Mitch. And before I pass it on to the team or MCs out here and who will introduce Partha, we will also, the other thing which I said is of certification. While these master classes are on, in the month of February, we will start off with a certificate program on people analytics by Ramesh Ranjan, right? The second one is really going to be PeopleSolve is another company which will be on women leadership. They are going to take a certificate. So before Women's Day, which is on 8th March, we will have a set of people certified and we will continue the journey on that. There is while these are the really modular courses that would be there, which would be a few hours or a day and things like that. There is the other real, a long-term one I would say is going to be on labor laws. It's an executive education for labor laws and compliance. This is going to be a 12 days session every second and fourth Saturday. And we will have perhaps 4 to 6 sessions which is virtual, but the other things will be more in person and stuff like that. So please watch out. These are few of the things. Certain courses on compensation and benefits specifically on that we are trying to drive. So this year is going to be just on certifications that we are going to focus on. So that's basically where we are. Next month onwards, perhaps the meeting might not be at Pride. It will be somewhere on MG Road, and most probably it will be at St. Joseph's Auditorium. We're going to make that as a permanent venue, just next to Trinity Metro Station, right? So it's just convenient to everyone as well. But please do look out for our communication and watch out for that space. So on that note, thank you and wish you all, please help us with the showcase and look forward to your participation. Please encourage people to register, come forward. We're already seeing great response, but your help is required on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Philip, for running quickly through chapter updates.
It's an honor to introduce Mr. Partha Sarthi, NS, a seasoned technology and leadership expert with over 35 years in the Indian IT sector, who currently serves as the managing partner at Mela Ventures. As the co-founder of Mindtree, he played a key role in building the company's technology and delivery leadership. Serving as COO, he focused on capacity building, creating a unique, high-performing and led through successful merger and acquisition, and fostering high caring culture that distinguished Mindtree in the competitive space. In addition to his corporate achievements, he is an angel investor in startups, contributing to the growth of the startup ecosystem. He navigates the complexities of a new age technologies like AI and machine learning. His contribution extends to mentoring startups, providing guidance on technology and startup and organization growth. Beyond his professional life, Partha is a founder director in White Swan Foundation, focusing on mental health awareness. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Partha Sarthi, NS, a true luminary in technology and leadership.
Very good evening. I get very nervous when Anish is sitting in the stage and listening to me. So it's a pleasure to be here. This whole topic of AI is sometimes when you look at it, it's very daunting. The question is, where do you start? And how do we assess how is it going to affect each one of us? When I say each one of us sitting in the room, and each one of our organizations and the different roles we support, I think it's very difficult to predict, but I think there are some things which will give us a clue in terms of where this whole technology is heading. But I want to just start by saying, as a team, many of you will have seen enough technology. So there's one more technology, so there's nothing to be afraid of. I think that's a starting point. Because there's too much is blown around, AI is going to come and take away everything that we're doing. I don't believe in that. But let's look at, today it is not possible to look at any newspaper, any pitch deck, anybody whom you talk to what you're doing without hearing the word AI or ML. Now, irrespective of whether they understand AI or ML, and this is I just picked up from business newspapers. I'm not even talking about technology newspapers. So I think everybody is talking about AI and AI and AI. To some extent, there's a lot of hype related to it. But what I want to mention is actually the news media is no exception also in creating this hype. But if you please out and say, where is AI going to help and what lens do I apply when you want to look at AI? I think there are three ways in which you can look at it from a simplistic point of view. One is, how does AI apply? How does it impact the enterprise? If it's a large company, a small company, how does it impact the enterprise? So that's a different ballgame. The second is actually, how does AI work in the case of individual apps? Many of us use apps, right? And it's going to have a dramatic impact in terms of how those apps can help us. So it's at an individual level. And the third area is actually on research. These are the people who are trying to find out different models, different ways by which it can help the first two. So I think you can look at it from three different angles, and each one of them have a different speed at which it will evolve, and it will have a different impact. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we go forward. What I want to, I was arguing with Anish, I don't want to call it a master class in AI or anything like that. All I just want to do is actually give a very simplistic view of AI, and more importantly, at the end of it, give some points saying what should you do differently from tomorrow morning. And I think that will be the big takeaway for each one of us, and that's what I aim to do. But to address this broader aspect, I think it's extremely important to start with the basics. So let's start with the basics. And when I say basics, I'm really going down to. Oops. So let me start with. So first let's talk about what is AI, and second is it's also important to understand how did we get here. It's important to understand the journey, and also important to understand where are we today. What are the pluses, what are the challenges, what are the big issues that they are facing. And more importantly, towards the end we'll talk about what you should do for today. For a lot of people who think AI is equal to ChatGPT, let me give you some data points. The very first time people talked about AI was in 1950. Some of you who follow computer science a little bit, you should go do Google or Turing test. There's a famous person by the name Alan Turing who came up with this idea saying, how do I differentiate between a human being and a machine? I should be able to, one side there could be a machine, the other side there could be a human being. I should be able to detect which is a machine and which is not. So it's called the famous Turing test. Anybody who studied computer science should know Turing test. This happened in 1950. 1950. I think the first formal discussion on what artificial intelligence can do for businesses happened in 1956, which is a very famous conference called the Dartmouth Conference. That is the time real computer science researchers came together and tried to figure out what can AI do, how can AI help us from a research point of view. My own personal story, I tell you. I joined Wipro way back in 1984. In 1986, my boss told me, AI is going to come and change the world, go do a course in AI. So I went and attended a course in AI in an Institute of Science in 1986. And I am looking back right now, Indian Institute of Science used to run this program called Proficiency courses. It was an evening course for working professionals. I don't think they discontinued it many years back. But now I'm thinking back as to what did I learn in that AI course at that time. It gives us two messages. One is AI has been in the making for such a long time. And even now we are struggling to find out real business use cases. Right? It shows how complex the technology is. And I go back, I still have the coursework with me, a few pages of the coursework with me. And I look back at that time, it has only mathematics and it has only formulas. Whereas today, when people talk about AI, nobody talks about what is behind. Because nobody cares what is behind. What is important is how is it going to help me. So AI by itself is not new and it's been there for a long time. The second thing I think it's important for all of us to be clear about, when people talk about, just before ChatGPT came, because ChatGPT changed a whole lot of conversation. Before that, people thought AI means robotics. Because that's what we see in science fiction movies, right? There'll be a robo movie there, say that is artificial intelligence, because we thought that's mimicking a human being. But that is not AI. That alone is not AI. Now, then what is AI? AI, a simplistic way to look at it is actually, how do we codify human intelligence? What goes in our head? How do you codify it? And how do you help? By codifying that, machines can start doing things which we all of us intuitively know how to do. So the first thing to understand is actually how do you codify human intelligence? And the second thing is actually that codification helps machines to mimic human beings. And we'll talk about where the progress is, where a lot of progress has happened, where a lot of progress is not happened. Now, what is underlying inside, behind the whole thing? There are 3 or 4 things. One, first of all, clearly AI is a multidisciplinary field. You know, it's not just about computer science, it's not just about mathematics, it's about robotics, it's about vision, it's about natural language processing. If you think about ChatGPT is all about language related stuff, right? But even for that language related stuff to be able to understand and answer your queries by analyzing millions of data, you need all the other things behind except robotics, probably vision. Right? So all these fusion of different technologies all come together, which also means each one of this, for example, you take mathematics as a field. I mean, it's evolved for thousands of years, right? And now similarly computer science, each one of it have reached a tipping point when all of them have worked together for really artificial intelligence to start working effectively. That's an important point to understand. Now, this is one way to understand from a pure technology point of view. The other way to look at it is actually what is the underlying technology behind it. I'm sure you keep hearing the word, right? There are 3 important things involved, and we don't have to understand this. It's just important to know what these are. One is actually the neural networks, second is algorithms, and third is data structures. At the end of the day, everything behind artificial intelligence programs are these 3 things. And those 3 things in turn use computer science, mathematics, and different forms of technology. You know, there are 2-3 things before I go here. There are 2-3 things that are important to understand. Researchers, if you look at pure research, they made tremendous strides in mimicking activities such as learning, reasoning, and perception. To the extent that it can be very concretely defined, it can be codified. So the question everybody should be asking ourselves is actually, will machines have the capabilities exceeding the capacity of human beings? Probably yes, but probably no as well. The reason why probably no is because there are certain things, the machines will definitely exceed the capability of human beings, but there are certain things that's extremely difficult. And I'll give a very simple anecdote which was told to us. I had the good fortune of meeting a senior researcher in Stanford University. And he put it very simply. He says, what is very difficult for human beings, machines can do it very easily. For example, number crunching. For example, looking at millions of data points and looking at patterns. It's very difficult for human beings to comprehend, right? There's so much of limit we have. Machines will do it very well. But what comes very intuitively for human beings, very difficult for machines. And he gave an example of, programming a system to just hold a glass of water and pick it up like that. It's one of the most complex things for robots to do. Because there is so much of sophistication involved. So I'm not even going to the area of our right brain thinking of grooming people and stuff like that. We'll talk about it later. I'm not even going there. Even on simple human activities, there are some activities in which AI probably will be far superior than us, but many areas it will struggle till the time research catches up on those areas. And that's where we are. Now, the second thing to understand is actually there are two types of AI. And this is a very theoretical definition. One is called narrow AI. Now, you can define narrow AI in whichever way you want, but the second is strong AI, and we'll talk about each one. Narrow AI is very simple. It focuses on performing specific tasks. It relies on human inputs to understand. People talk about learning, right? Initially, human inputs are to begin, only then the machine will learn. It relies on human inputs to define parameters, and the learning algorithms take over after that. That also means there's a whole lot of training data to be given. Now look at autonomous cars. How does a car know how to drive? Because the only way a car, a Tesla, drives in the US autonomously is because the Tesla's power inside has been fed with data. What is this data? This data is about vision. They will take videos and videos and videos and pictures, and those pictures are all marked. So you'll mark, say, this is a tree, this is a road, this is a human being, this is a car. That process is called annotation. So you take pictures, you annotate it, you tell the machine, okay, this is how your car looks like, this is how a 18-wheeler looks like, this is how a human being looks like, and keep on feeding that. Just imagine how much of information has to be fed before the car knows, okay, I have to drive on the road, this is the pavement, this is a human being, this is another car, and it uses that judgment, and that's how it learns. So if you think about the complexity, we think, car driving by itself is very easy, but this is what goes behind. Now also look at the computing power that is required inside the car, because with the cameras it's seeing the vision, but it has algorithms behind by which it learned, so it's applying this and making a decision to drive or not drive. And even in spite of all that, there are fundamental mistakes the cars can make. There's a very classic example. Again, it goes back to something which is very intuitive for human beings. Like there's a very classic example where Tesla failed. So what happens is there's a building, and the building has a reflection of another car. It's a reflection. A human being very, very quickly realized, oh, there's a building, there's a reflection, this is really in a car. But a Tesla thinks that's another car. So, because it is so difficult to distinguish that. So it depends upon so much of learning data that needs to be fed in. So all this forms in the area of narrow AI. Very specific purpose, very well defined. This is what we have made tremendous progress in. Still a long way to go, but this is what we have made tremendous progress. The second part is called strong AI. The more common colloquial name for it is called artificial general intelligence. Where artificial general intelligence, actually machines start thinking like human beings. You have not taught it. It is thinking on its own. Right? We are not there yet. So it will take a while for us to be able to do it. Now, once this happens, the Turing test I talked about, you will not be able to make out which is a machine, which is a human being. Right? So we are not there yet. But I think at some point of time, we will reach there. No real systems exist. Though in some areas we are much more closer, but many areas we are far behind. This is the place, we talk, a lot of people today talk about regulations around AI, right? I'm sure you're all reading in the newspaper saying government should put some guardrails and stuff like that. Because any technology can be used for good purposes, it can also be used for bad purposes. This is a dangerous purpose. It's a dangerous purpose because the machine should start thinking on its own. We never taught it. There's again a very classic example when people started building autonomous cars. For some of you who have driven in the US, you know that in rural roads there is no signal, right? So there's an intersection. There is no signal, there's a stop sign. So stop sign in the US, people come there and stop, and whoever comes first has to go. So they wanted to test, if you have two Teslas going in different, coming from two different directions on a stop sign, it comes simultaneously and stops at the stop sign. Now compare what a human being would have done and what did the machine do. So let's assume you are in that situation. So what do? You will look at the guy, the driver, you have an eye contact with the driver, you give some indication, you go, or something you tell the driver, say you go first or I'll go first, right? How will the machine do it? So they tried this experiment saying, if the machine is able to think on its own, you've not told it. So people predicted that the machine will give some form of indication to the other car. For example, it can blink. It's not been taught, but it knows how to give an indication to the other car. That it may blink or it may put on its wiper. People also said it may move back a little bit to give an indication saying you go first. But this problem has not been solved yet. So I think that falls under the category of artificial general intelligence. So simplistically put, narrow AI and strong AI or artificial general intelligence, all that we are talking about right now in the real world when people talk about ChatGPT and stuff like that is narrow AI. AGI is very scary to think about. Some progress being made without guardrails in research by the government is very dangerous. We are not there yet. But this is something researchers are getting very, very worried about. So I'll talk about one more thing which I'm sure everybody talks about these words. It's important to understand what these three areas are. What is artificial intelligence, what is machine learning, and what is deep learning? So this subset gives you a feeling. So when people talk about intelligence, that is a bigger, larger subset. That is a bigger subset. Right? Within that, there is machine learning, where algorithms whose performance improve as they are exposed to more and more data, like in the driving example. Every time a Tesla goes out on the road, it actually captures more information, it makes decisions, it learns more. Right? And in the back end, they are also feeding more and more information, like the reflection example that I gave. Right? As more and more data comes in, it becomes more and more intelligent. Now that is a machine learning part. It learns on its own. Deep learning is a subset of machine learning, where multi-layer neural networks learn from vast amounts. It's a different way of learning, but it is a subset of machine learning. It's important to understand that you don't have to go into the neural networks behind that. But this is the hierarchy. Artificial intelligence at the top, part of that is machine learning, subset of that is deep learning. Just for information for you to know. Now let's talk a little bit about how did we get here. Now, copyrighted by Accenture, so full disclosure. Accenture put out a very nice report. I picked this up because it very nicely explains. So, go back to the time when I talked about 1950s and 60s, when a lot of work on artificial intelligence happened. Just like these, funding winter even in AI. For a long time in the 80s, I think nobody talked about AI because people realized that too much of effort is going into it. And we are not getting enough results. So there's a lot of funding winter happened. But the two funding winters have happened in AI in general. But what happened after that, actually, after the second funding winter, two things happened. Cost of computing came down dramatically. And cost of storage came down dramatically. And these two are extremely important for AI to function. Computing power has to be low cost. And you need to have vast storage data to be able to analyze it. When that happened, AI got a kicker again. And that's when it started picking up again, late 90s and early 2000s. So, if you look at the 2000 era, that is the time when machine learning picked up, primarily driven by these two things. Low compute costs and low storage costs. That helped machine learning to really pick up steam once again. Then in 2010s, that's when the researchers started looking at how does deep learning happen within itself by having a different form of neural networks, which is more research-like. That happened. So that happened in the 2010s. In the 2020s is when we started building machines which started having control over language. So you can parse millions and millions of data points and start giving answers, sometimes hallucinated answers, sometimes real answers. And we'll talk about that challenge as well. So I think that mastery over language is what resulted in ChatGPT in a way, because it can parse different kinds of data. This also brings a very different challenge when you talk about enterprises. If you look at, when you talk about ChatGPT, what is the data behind? It just consumes any amount, anything in data. It can be newspapers, it could be articles and stuff like that. It's a lot of language, a lot of metrics, a lot of data points. It consumes that. But if you go to an enterprise data is always in structured format. It will be in an ERP somewhere, it will be in structured databases somewhere. So today there's a big challenge in terms of ChatGPT kind of models working very well with enterprise structured data. A lot of new startups are going to come in this space, which will bridge the gap between the narrow AI kind of ChatGPT systems and structured data in enterprise systems. Right? There'll be a layer that is required in between to be able to get the benefit of that. And that's an area we have to watch out for as we go forward. So where are we today? So clearly we have moved from research lab to common use. And that's a universally accepted path. Till recently it was still research labs and people are doing some crazy work. But now it's moved to real use cases. There are fascinating use cases that people have already built solutions, works reasonably well. There is already a significant impact on work and definitely on society as well. So today, even if you use social media, the amount of AI work that happens behind putting an ad for you in Facebook is not funny. Because it knows everything about you. It knows what you're looking for, it knows what you're searching, unless you're working in an incognito mode, it knows everything. So no ad which comes to you is by accident. So that is AI at work for you behind. Sometimes it's really scary, right? And all there is to know about each of you, I think the social media platforms already know. So it is actually putting to good use. Now, tasks which are repetitive and routine are being done by AI today. I mean, there are innumerable examples of this. Medical imaging, for example. I mean, today, if you look at a CT scan image, even a doctor, the most experienced doctor, has to look at the CT scan image with a lot of focus and attention, and still he or she can miss out something. A machine will not miss out. And that can be done today, it's already being done today. Right? Similarly, for example, today, I'm sure everywhere in Bangalore hospital, they start advertising this robotic knee surgery. Right? So what is robotic knee surgery? If you look at it, it's very interesting. All that does is, the machine has been taught, enough data has been fed, saying, this is the structure of Anish's knee. Anish, I hope you don't get a knee surgery, but I'm using you as an example. So, it is not that the robot does the surgery. The surgeon still holds the knife, but the knife is actually held by the robot's hand. And it allows you to move your knife in a particular way. It crosses a boundary, even if you try to move, it will not move. Because the machine knows now if you go beyond that, you're going to cut some nerves. Right? Now, which brings to an interesting point. This means this is not AI versus human. It is AI and human beings. And we'll talk a little more about that. So I think anything which can be done with very high amount of precision, because a lot of data is available, that can be done by a machine better along with a human being. And how does this happen? Today, I talked about annotation, right, for an autonomous car. Today, what they do is actually, when somebody does an open heart surgery, there are videos taken. That videos are sent to companies like BPO, KPO companies. They look at the video and they mark organs in the body. So they mark, this is how a lung looks like, this is how a heart looks like, this is how a vein looks like, this is how a tendon looks like. So that's how the machine knows this. So when tomorrow the robotic knee surgery machine needs to work on it, that is the data which is being fed. So those kind of areas, there will be tremendous amount of implications on work today. Tasks which require leadership, empathy, judgment, there are many more in this list. Can only be done by human beings. Let's not have any doubts in our mind that this can be outsourced to a machine. It cannot be outsourced to a machine. So it is not about AI versus humans at this point of time. It is AI plus humans versus humans. Which also means that there's a famous statement, right? Your job will not be replaced by a machine. Your job will be replaced by somebody who can use AI better. Right? And that is what is an implication for each one of us. That means each one of us will start thinking about how should I enrich my own job so that I don't get replaced by somebody who knows more about AI than I do. Now, what are the challenges that exist? There are tons of challenges. From a technology point of view, compute point of view, regulation point of view, there are many of them. The most important in my view is the bias in training data. Now this bias can be very, very scary. You look at it this way, right? Now let's assume the immigration system of a country, the system wants to randomly pick up profile for more scrutiny. If it's been trained only with certain profile of people, then it only pick up those kind of people. Right? So bias is not just about gender. Bias is about many, many different things. It's about age, it's about racial, it's about color. There are so many different types of bias. Now, how do you go to a stage where I have enough training data which is not biased? There's no scientific way by which you can today come and say, I have enough unbiased training data. At the end of the day, all AI systems use training data. Let's be clear on that. So how do you remove bias out of training data is the biggest challenge. Second is it lacks common sense. Right? Common sense is the most powerful thing that we all have. Right? And to codify that common sense into machines is a non-trivial problem, and I don't think in my lifetime it's going to happen. Right? So it is a big challenge. There are certain things we do with common sense. Right? Like for example, there's a very famous, it was not a real life thankfully, but an example given, that an autonomous car is driving and it has two choices. There's a child, I hit the child, or here's an old person driving, I hit the old person. The machine will think, okay, old person has lived his life, so let me go hit the old person. Now, do you want an AI system to do that? Right? So I think those kind of choices, machines don't know how to make. Right? In a way, you can argue that everything that human being does, which is left brain, which is math, quant based, logical reasoning based, machines can do. Anything which is right brain based, which is judgmental, those things are a lot more difficult to do. Lack of robustness in handling edge cases. There's a very famous thing, I'm sure some of you know what edge cases are. Edge cases are really abnormal cases, 5-10%, but it is extremely important to know how to handle edge cases. Right? The example that I gave of a reflection of a car in a glass building is an edge case. Right? If training data is not made available to systems to take care of edge cases, then when that edge case happens, the machine won't know how to react. I don't know, you recently heard about this unfortunate incident which happened in the US. US has this Uber, the driverless Ubers, right? So the driverless Uber, the way these autonomous cars are programmed is that if it encounters something it doesn't know what to do, it's programmed to pull to the curb and stop in a safe manner. That's how it's programmed. Now this unfortunate case is a real case happened in San Francisco. Unfortunate case was this driverless Uber was going in one direction. There was a pedestrian who was crossing in the other direction. A car driven by a human being hit that pedestrian. That pedestrian came under this car. So this car knew this is an abnormal condition. What does it do? It drives to the curb and stops. But the passenger is below, the pedestrian is below the car. Unfortunately, the pedestrian died. Now this is an edge case. Now, just think about it. How will you identify all edge cases? Right? When it comes to human life, you have to take care of 100% edge cases. You can't say I'm 95% edge cases I'm taking care of. So that's why the robustness of handling edge cases is an extremely important challenge that exists today. Ethical and moral dilemmas I talked about, child versus old person, where do you draw the line? It has severe limitations on creativity and intuition. It doesn't have intuition, it doesn't have common sense. There are safety issues. Let's accept it, there are safety issues. I don't know if you know about it, one of the most famous earliest cases of an accident happened in a Volkswagen factory in Germany, where a robo was operating. One day, I don't know what happened to the robo. The robo crushed a fellow worker to death. So that's why today, if you look at, I don't know, some of you would have visited the TVS factory in Hosur. So nowadays, wherever they have a robo working, it's in a cage. There's a full cage around it. For two reasons. One, even it wants to become super intelligent, it can't get hold of a worker, number one. Number two is actually because it operates at very high speeds. Suppose it's carrying a tank of a TVS 50, moving like this speed. If it slips, it'll just fly off. It can injure people, right? That's why they put it in a cage right now. So safety issues have to be thought through very differently when we have AI systems working along with human beings, which is what we want to happen. We want it to work collaboratively with us. I talked about this proprietary structured data as general public knowledge in AI. This is a challenge enterprises face. Today, enterprise can't depend on ChatGPT to give answers because we know many answers are wrong in ChatGPT, right? Sometimes it's very funny how simple things don't work in ChatGPT. So I had a colleague of mine. I asked him, tell me what you know about this colleague. It gives me patently wrong data. It gives me places where the person has never worked, saying this person worked in this company. It's wrong. You can go to LinkedIn and find out it's wrong. Right? So there is a whole lot of work that needs to be done, and before enterprises can start relying on this data for any real useful purpose, or even working with customers. And last but not the least, regulation. Because everybody says we need to regulate. Everybody is concerned about, you can't let research go on in a, AI go on in a direction. It can be harmful to people, to countries, one country against another. Like the digital divide, there will be an AI divide will happen. So there's a lot of clamor for regulation. But the question we have to ask is, do you think governments can regulate this? Do they know enough about this technology to come up with guardrails in terms of how do you regulate it? So it's a big dichotomy. On one hand, if you put regulation, it will stop the progress of AI evolving to the next level. But on the other hand, if you don't put regulation, it may go haywire and actually cause more harm than good. So it's a big question mark. Bottom line is, my belief is, human beings have set a very high benchmark for machines to imitate, and there's no running away from that fact. There's another thing I put an extract from a book. This book is something I would strongly urge each one of you to read. It's a very easy to understand book. It's called Human Plus Machine. It's by Paul Doherty. It's a HBR press. It's available in Amazon. It's a wonderful book. Some parts of it goes to a little bit of technology, but there are many parts which are easily understandable. And it's extremely important for each one of you to read this book. And it has one important aspect called the missing middle. And this is a very fascinating way to look at how AIs and human beings will work together. So if you look at the left side, right, there's a human-only activity. That means everybody is saying these activities cannot be done by machines. We talk about lead, to empathize, to create, and judge, and stuff like that. On the right side, which are machine-only activity, machine-only means machine can do much better than human beings. But there is a middle area which is missing today, which is where all of us should focus on. Saying, how can I get some skills by which I can help the machine do better and help me better? So that is called as a missing middle. For example, talk about training. Right? If you train AI system, the system will work better. Those kind of areas. So this book is something I would strongly urge you to read. Each one of these words that you see on the top is in detail explained in the book in a simplistic, understandable manner. I would strongly urge you to read. If I have to recommend one book for you to read, it's going to be this book. So what will change? I'm sure everybody knows what will change. So this is like common sense. Every organization and every role will be impacted. There's no running away from the fact. There are some very fascinating examples. I can tell you 2-3 examples of what the VC industry is doing in terms of how to use AI, and I'll give you 1 or 2 examples of that. Like I said before, your role will not be replaced by AI, but it will be replaced by someone who uses AI. So that means you have to know what AI is and how can you use AI to do your job better. New roles will emerge. Now, not everything is known. I'm sure you've heard the word prompt engineer, right? Prompt engineer is the highest paid job description today in the world. What kind of prompt to ask an AI system? Because depending on the prompt, you get the answer. If you ask the wrong prompt, you get wrong answer. So prompt engineer is an official role right now. There are JDs available on prompt engineer, and you will see this is the highest. It used to be data analyst and data scientist. All that is gone right now. Prompt engineer is the highest paid job. Now, this is one role I know of. There are many new roles like this will exist in terms of who know how to use the AI to extract the best out of it. So what those roles are, honestly I don't know, but new roles will definitely come up. Organizations will start doing different things and start doing things they've never done before. Because today you have the power which you never had before. The question is, how do they do it? How do they do it effectively? How do they do it safely, without bias, within the enterprise, working on truth data, one version of truth. That is the challenge enterprises are facing today. What should you do from today? First is learn AI. And not be AI. Don't say, I don't know AI. A little bit of flavor, but there are some very basic things that you can know about AI. And start looking at tools and ask demanding within your organization that these tools should be used by us. But somebody within the organization should be chartered to say these tools should be available for us to be able to do our job better. So that demand has to come from you. The routine stuff of analyzing data, get some Excel sheets. I keep pulling Anish like HR guys love Excel sheets. No more Excel sheets. I will not work on Excel sheets. Right? So I think that's what you have to demand within the organization. Second thing is be very, very mindful that you can't be over-dependent on AI. You can't, let's say suppose you give an answer to that and the answer is wrong. You can't say, oh no, I don't know, AI told me to do it. That is irresponsible. Right? You have to still apply your judgment. So you can't be over-dependent on AI till the time you build a phenomenal amount of trust in the systems that you use. There's a lot of deep fakes you know about deep fakes, you're reading about all the Bollywood actors there. There's a lot of content loss, there's a lot of hallucinations which happen. There's misrepresentation because sometimes an English statement, two of us read it, we understand it differently, right? The machine also will understand it differently. So there is a misinformation, there's a lack of understanding, all that happens behind the machine. So you can't have over-dependence, you still have to apply your common sense, your intelligence. You are far more intelligent than the machine can be. So don't have over-dependence on this. Think about new roles. And some of the new roles that may come up, you may be the best person for them. So thinking about new roles and which are the roles that you may really excel in. Right? For all you know, this prompt engineer, there can be a specialized prompt engineer for HR. Maybe you want to be the best in that. To be able to query systems, to be able to do the best way only you can. So start thinking about new roles and how you can excel in them. And last but not the least, I think put pressure on your internal IT systems to say, let's start small, but let's start now. Because there's no better way of knowing this till the time you start doing something. Things like, I'm sure all of you in your career you've done it. I will do attrition prediction. Right? All of us have done, right? So you look at tons of data, last year data, 10 years data, 14 years data, stuff. This is a prediction I do. This can, I think, from a personal, each one of you, I call the high tech on one side and high touch on the other side. Right? If you are a very small company, you can be high touch, you're family oriented, everybody knows everybody. Right? It looks nice, great, but it can't scale. But you shouldn't swing to the other side of the high tech. You never meet a human being, everything is a machine behind another machine. That's also not a good thing. You need to get a balance right between high tech and high touch. So that's one pendulum. The second pendulum, I tell this more to campus hires when they come and join, right, is between learning and contributing. Right? If you look at anybody, you learn something, you contribute something. Let's assume this together is equal to 100%. When you are fresh out of college, your contribution is zero. It's 100% learning, you're learning everything, right? But that's 100 plus 0. The challenge is you have to ensure in your career, neither learning nor contribution ever goes to 0. Now what does it mean? So after some time you can say, I don't do any learning, I'm only doing 100% contribution. Right? Organization will feel good, but you will become obsolete in 2 years. Right? And other way, after 10 years experience, you say, I don't do contribution, I'm only learning. The company will throw you out the next day. Right? You have to get the right balance between learning plus contribution. And this movement is important because all of you have to swing a little bit towards the learning side. You can't say, oh, I'm so busy, I don't have time to learn AI. It's a sure shot way to become obsolete very quickly. So I think all of us should swing the pendulum a little towards the learning so that you use this as an opportunity to understand what this is all about. Last but not the least, I think I am a firm believer that in the net of things, AI will create more jobs than it will destroy jobs. Except that it will create different kinds of jobs. I'm sure this is a very cliched statement. So I don't think we should get overly worried about technology taking away jobs. I think this fear has been there from the time computer was invented. I don't think that fear is really unfounded. It can create more jobs, different kinds of jobs. Every time there is a disruption which has happened in the industry, whether it's in the IT industry or any other industry, every disruption creates more opportunities. The people who grab those opportunities by putting the right effort are the people who thrive and survive beyond the disruption. And I think this disruption is a massive, massive, big disruption. But it is an opportunity for all of us to be able to grab it and see how we can enrich our own personal lives as well as how we contribute back to the organizations that we work for. Thank you very much. Now, we rely on a lot of data. So today what's happening is there are at least one VC firm that I know of. They are looking at evaluating all the decisions you have taken in the past. I have invested in these 10 companies, right? I have all the data of these companies. I had a thesis in terms of how I invested. Now I know how they performed in the last 5 years. And they're feeding into the AI and telling the VC firm what bias do you have. Are you biased towards some area? Are you biased for investing or against investing in some areas? And that's an extremely important tool to have because that's hindsight decision, right? You're looking at hindsight and improving your own decision making. The second thing what they're doing is one of the biggest challenges VC industry has is actually you'll see a startup and let's assume the investment team is a 4-member team. 2 of us will say this is God's gift to mankind. You have to put $200 million here. 2 of them will say this is junk. You should not put 1 paisa in this. It happens all the time. Now what people are building now is they're building an AI system. An AI system, you argue with an AI system. You say I won't invest. System will tell you why you should not invest. Or vice versa. It's called the red, it will act as a red signal or a green signal. You can tune it, you say now I'm going to argue for, I want the machine to argue against. Then I can flip the switch and say you argue against and I argue for. It's very powerful because systems have an ability to look at tons of data. So its ability to, we get blindsided many times, right? Human beings get blindsided. Now that can't get blindsided. So these are real systems being put to use, right? And like this, there are many examples that people are really using technology for to make decision making better. At the end of the day, there are 2 benefits that we'll get with AI. One is efficiency benefit. And the second is actually the efficiency, productivity, whatever you want to call it as. The second is actually decision making. How do you ensure that you make more right decisions than wrong decisions? All of us every day we are striving for that, right? How do you make more right decisions? You will all make wrong decisions, but how do you make more right decisions than wrong decisions? And that's what it has to help us. Thank you very much. I don't know if you want to take a few questions or